All right. And we are back. Pardon me a drink of my coffee there. Let me find out, of course, right when we left off. Young John Hamilton had gone squirrel hunting on Sunday morning. You remember? Of course, he's getting ready to go to service with his brothers. He just dropped his last squirrel, grabbed it off the ground, and was headed back to the cabin. Okay, so that's where we pick up with the second half of chapter 1. So let us continue. Once back at the cabin, William helped him make quick work of the squirrels while James hitched the horse to their small work wagon. Then all three of them washed up to make themselves presentable for church and for Mama. They each donned their newest dark linen breeches and fine white shirts, all made by the loving hands of their mother. John and William wore beautiful yellow gold waistcoats that matched the shiny buckles on their shoes. John preferred his emerald green waistcoat and matching stockings. Green had always been his favorite color. James grabbed his hunting rifle, pouch, and horn from beside the stone fireplace and headed for the door. William shot him a wide-eyed glance. "Mama ain't gonna be too happy to see you toting that there rifle into church," John cautioned. For as long as he could remember, church meetings and guns did not mix in the Hamilton family. On Sunday, they left them at home, no exceptions. Papa had never carried a weapon to church. He insisted that on the Sabbath they would rely on the sovereignty of God to protect them, not gunpowder and lead. He believed that God was surely capable enough to protect them for a 1/2 mile ride through civilized road in a country populated by friends. Mama carried that sentiment into her new marriage and family. "Mama just might snatch it up, club you over the head with it, James," quipped young William, cackling at the thought of their tiny mother disciplining his big brother. "I ain't taking it into church, you numbskull. I'll stow it under the straw in the wagon just to be cautious. I'm in the militia, and this is only 200 miles from Charlestown. You never know when redcoats might come a riding up through Charlotte and up into this holler, maybe even on the Sabbath. So I say better safe than sorry. You boys need to grab your guns too and hide them with mine." John and William looked at each other, nodded, and then obediently grabbed their weapons. John took his papa's Fowler from its place of honor over the fireplace. William fetched his shorter-barreled Sea Service Brown Bess from under his bed, and then all three headed out to the wagon wearing their finest fur-felt cocked hats. James carefully concealed their weapons and equipment under the loose straw. Then the boys headed off down the road toward the Poplar Tent Presbyterian Church. Organized under a poplar tree in 1751 by the Reverend John Thompson, the church quickly graduated from an open-air meeting into a tent meeting. When the people of the church began to seek out a new name for their congregation, legend says that someone supposedly threw a cup of water on top of the tent and then exclaimed, "Let us call it the Poplar Tent Church." And the name stuck. Of course, the tent had grown over the years. Some folks wanted to erect a permanent wood structure, but the traditionalists all loved their old tent, and so the tent remained. As the boys rounded the bend leading up to the grove of poplar trees that towered over the tent, they noticed a somewhat larger than usual crowd gathered around the Sunday meeting place. Kids were playing quietly, Sabbath style, in the glade just downhill from the church. I lost my spot. Kids were playing quietly, Sabbath style, in the glade just downhill from the church tent. The ladies were undoubtedly inside the tent, quietly talking and preparing for worship. Several men milled about in small groups around horses, mules, and wagons, talking reverently. Some were a bit more animated in their speech, while others stared and nodded in reflection. Clearly, politics and war were heavy upon their minds. Ephraim Farr looked up from one of the groups and nodded at the boys as they pulled up in their small, humble wagon. James courteously, if not warmly, returned the nod. John paid little attention to the menfolk as he searched the glade for the boys who were his age. Spotting his friend Jacob Newman and several other teenage boys sitting on the ground around a stump near the edge of the woods, John jumped from the wagon before it had even stopped moving. He walked deliberately toward the young men of his age set. A soft, feminine voice broke his concentration on his group of friends. "Oh my, that is one handsome outfit you're wearing, Johnny Hamilton." It was Mary Skillington, a plain, pleasant 14-year-old who made no secret about her undying affections for John Hamilton. And though she was not unpleasant, John thought that she was a bit underdeveloped, lanky, and awkward. Her overabundance of freckles and slightly toothy grin made him cringe on the inside. He tried not to exhibit any awkward discomfort and displeasure that he was feeling at the moment. "Why, thank you for noticing, Mary," he responded rather coolly. "My mama taught me to wear only the very best in the worship and service of our Lord. You are most kind." "Oh, you would look handsome in just about anything, Johnny." She grinned her toothy grin. Sensing the discomfort, she tried to change the subject. "Everyone is acting so queer, sitting around in little packs and talking. What do you think all this jabber is about?" "Oh, I'm quite certain it's the war and the redcoats. They're knocking on the door of Charlestown, you know." "I reckon you're right." Her words trailed off into a disquieting silence. John, not wanting to continue the conversation, spoke abruptly. "Mary, if you'll be excusing me, I need to talk to the other boys for just a bit." Mary, crestfallen by the perceived rejection, just nodded in response and then quickly turned to walk back over to the area where the preteen girls were all gathered. All of them were whispering and giggling and pointing toward the exchange between Mary and John. Well, John rolled his eyes and walked on, nodding to his peers as he knelt beside them. Jacob slapped him on the shoulder and quipped, "Nice of you to finally join us, John. We figured you two was picking out a wedding date, maybe." The boys all chuckled. Daniel Pippin, with a thick Irish brogue, followed. "Or perhaps you two are discussing some prospective names for your firstborn." The boys all laughed rather raucously, but quieted quickly upon several stern looks from the men's area. "That'll be enough of that, fellers. I got my Fowler in the wagon, and I ain't scared to use it." Shocked, wide eyes glanced between John and the wagon, but he quickly broke the silence with a quick wink and a smile. "What's all the high-level talking going on around here at church today?" queried John. "Seems a bit odd and quiet all at the same time." "It's this dang war," Jacob replied. "Ever since the redcoats landed down at Charlestown and put it under the cannon and the gun, people been getting jumpy. It's just a little too close for comfort, you know? Word is that there are folks starving and having a rough go of it down there, but nobody knows for sure. We ain't heard nothing for near on a week now. The safety committee sent a rider down that way on Monday, but they ain't heard nothing from him yet. Folks is getting a bit jumpy." John nodded. "James is one of the grumpy ones for sure. He made me and William pack our guns for the trip to church this morning. Said you never know when the militia might get called up or trouble might show up. I thought he was overreacting a bit, but now I reckon not." "No, I bet you can find a gun on every horse and in every wagon on this Sabbath day," Jacob confirmed. "Never thought I would see the day that good Presbyterian folk would trust the persuading power of lead over the sovereignty of the Almighty." He grinned. All the boys did. "Better safe than sorry, ain't that what folks say?" John commented. Quiet nods of affirmation flowed around the small circle of young fellows. The slow movement of men toward the tent signaled that it was time for church to begin. The kids quickly followed their father's example and began walking toward the open flap of the tent. Just as the men started to enter, a gunshot from over the hill toward the south broke the silence of their holy migration. Everyone spun around to look. Some of the men made a quiet, Quiet, quick dash for their wagons and horses in case the weapons were needed. Soon the gallop of a horse could clearly be heard, and it was approaching quickly. A rider topped the hill on the road to Charlotte. John recognized the rider immediately. It was Daniel Overton, an ensign in the local militia. Jacob pointed up the hill and yelled, "It's Mr. Overton! He's back from Charlestown!" Women were spilling out of the church tent just as the young soldier rode up, his horse soaked and streaked with lather, tongue hanging out and thoroughly dehydrated. One of the teenage boys appeared almost instantly with 2 buckets of water. Ensign Overton drank thirstily from one, while the boy held the other under the muzzle of the poor horse. Overton poured some of the water over his dusty face and then dumped the remainder over the horse's neck. The church people were as thirsty for news as that horse was for her water. Seeing the query in their eyes, Overton dumped a bucket of shocking news on them. "Charlestown has fell." That's all he said. Succinct, rapid, to the point. "When?" shouted one of the men. "On Friday. I've been riding 2 days straight just to get here. Ran 2 other horses to ground. Confiscated this one early this morning. I saw a white flag of surrender go up, and everything on Friday was done. Lincoln surrendered his entire command, over 5,000 men." The congregation gasped. "How many British?" asked another. "I ain't sure, but it was a powerful lot of them. One feller who was there in the woods with me said he heard that there was over 12,000 of them." 12,000! exclaimed one of the women. "So many!" "That's why I'm here. Colonel Irwin let me rest a spell and then sent me straight out up this way to spread the word. The militia's been called up. All men 16 years of age and older. No muster date yet. Just get your affairs in order and get your gear ready for when the call comes, because it's a coming, gents. Because them redcoats didn't come up here just to set up house down in Charlestown." That's the end of chapter 1. Tune in next time as we read from chapter 2. Thanks for listening.